everyone, it's Josie here, and I'm here with Donny today. We're going to be doing a video on the new moon in Gemini. Hi, Donny.
Hello.
How are
This will be
you?
very, I'm good. This will be a very exciting new moon actually, because it's got many interesting aspects to begin with, but also this new moon will actually tie in with something else 18 months later, in which we'll cover within this video.
Hmm.
So, do you want to see the new moon configuration?
Yes.
Sure. Let's see. All right. So this new moon will actually be on the fixed star Alcone, and Alcone as a fixed star is not actually a really benefic one to start with. And Alcone actually rules the throat and also the central nervous system. So when the new moon actually hits the fixed star Alcone, I think there will be a lot of anxiety in the air. I think it's understandable because we've been, be at home for the longest time ever.
Yeah. Well, and new moons are talking about new beginnings. So,
Yeah.
this is like a new way of going about your everyday, activities, Gemini, your day-to-day things that you're doing in your, local environment, right? So businesses are starting to open back up, things like that. And a lot of people are having a lot of anxiety about that.
Well, I think people are just unsure whether is it safe to be out there just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's always this kind of question mark. And but actually, this Gemini new moon, because when you talk about Gemini, it's about plans and ideas. It can be a time of forming great ones, actually, like the seeding of future ideas to come.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, honestly, we've been undergoing this previous Scorpio full moon, which is kind of like bring us to the depths of our soul.
That was an intense one, yeah.
Intense one, right? I mean, for the
Felt that
past 2 weeks, I was like, ugh. But then, it's almost like a breath of fresh air, which is Gemini. We're pulling away from that darkness to actually enter into some, like, re-enter the realm of some light. And Gemini rules short-term plans. So I think opportunities may actually be slapped upon us to actually think of how are we going to move forward from this.
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of interesting because, Gemini rules butterflies, so it's like being in a cocoon for so long and now everybody's kind of like re-emerging.
I think so, and with those new ideas that's in our minds, we can actually take initiative to make them happen on the short term, because I don't think like Gemini, when we talk about Gemini, it's about short-term plans.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually have the extra like push to actually go out and connect with people. I mean, stay safe at the same time. We will get into that a bit later. To actually be busy again, because Gemini is a busy sign. It's the busy bee sign.
Yeah. Well, and too, like if you use the metaphor of like the butterfly and the cocoon, so everyone's been like, thinking up these ideas and like rethinking the way they want to go about their lives and, reviewing like, their habits, their jobs. They've had a time to reflect and build something new. And so now these new ideas are, basically being born, which new moons talk about that. It's planting the seeds. So now that the restrictions are a little bit less and they're able to like go and flourish and able to go implement those new ideas.
Yeah, I think it's also like we've been so panted up at home, and there's so much like excess mental energy that comes along with that. And like when this new moon comes, I think we'll be probably picking up a lot of little small projects along the way, because we need variety in our lives, and that's Gemini. We'll be also like filling up our schedules with things to do,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep busy with whatever stuff that turns us on mentally to just kind of dissipate the mental energy that's been built up within us.
Or maybe over this time you've developed some new skills that you're, ready to put out
Oh
there.
yes, maybe like you'll be thinking like, I've been cooped up at home and I've been taking these online courses,
Mm-hmm.
and I've learned a certain new something something, to go along with that for the past like 1 or 2 months, and it's time to like, maybe I can turn this into something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that idea could be seeded within you. And of course, Gemini is about spending time with others, being sociable, but also engage more within the community, within the neighborhood around you, and also with young people, because
Yeah.
Gemini rules youth. So yeah, all this stuff can really come to your mind. But also, Gemini is a very restless sign because it's a mutable energy. It loves that kind of if it's the uncontrolled Gemini energy, it can be all over the place and you can create some form of stress and anxiety. And you can probably take on more on your plate than you should. So probably let your mind have a break in between if you have to.
Are you talking to me or are you talking to Geminis now? I relate to that.
Because the thing is that you do have a prominent Gemini angle, but I do have very prominent Gemini planets as well.
Yeah.
So I'm almost like talking to myself actually.
Yeah.
But then like what I feel about Gemini as well, like on this new moon, we are actually trying to find a way out of things, a way through, a way forward.
Yeah.
And because Gemini rules the mental plane and we are thinking our way out.
Yeah.
But then when we get so scattered, because Gemini rules scattering as well of energy, we may not have the right answer and we may not be actually paying attention to what we should be listening, or if there's some important advice that comes in to us in the coming weeks, we may not be actively listening. We'd be more busy with like blabbering words out than, like, yeah. And
Gemini's very like youthful and playful and like it gets excited and like, so I think everybody's going to be kind of like a little kid.
Yeah. I mean, like with this Gemini new moon, I find that, like people will be more eager to kind of well, because there's a few other planets in Gemini. So and the North Node is also there.
Mm-hmm.
We may actually open up new communication lines or networks. And I think my best advice over this new moon is to be a better listener.
Mm-hmm.
I think important messages will come in, but then we have to listen and just stick our ears out to be receptive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what I can see from this new moon is that the closest aspect will be trining that Saturn in Aquarius, which just went retrograde actually. And what I feel is that when the new moon actually trines Saturn as the closest aspect is that as Saturn is retrograde, so it's something. And Saturn is to build, so we are actually rebuilding our own reality, probably getting back to work and probably thinking further down the road with making progress with longer term plans and goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when a planet goes retrograde, it's, the re-word is really, key. So things are reopening, you're revising these new ideas. I think also with that Gemini new moon that there's, groups of people who have gotten together, like small friend groups, and thought of these really amazing ideas. And now might be a good time to like lay the foundation for those, because Saturn is the foundation. Also in Aquarius rules your friends. So there's this cool thing happening. I think a lot of like little small businesses or people shifting to online is going to be a thing, or people rebuilding their businesses online. So I think I've seen, what was it? Twitter employees can now work from home. So similar to that energy, some businesses might be shifting to online.
Mm, I think also with like Saturn retrograde trining that new moon, um, the progress may be slow because Saturn is a slow planet, but then it gives us the patience and perseverance to to go on. It's almost like that green light to make longer term plans happen, knowing that it would take quite some time to actually materialize. But then um, it gives us that green light to go ahead with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But having said that, though, there are certain things in this new moon that will be a little bit tricky, to
Yes,
say the
there's a couple
least.
challenges with this one.
Yeah, there's always like a but in this equation. So if you actually see here, we've got Venus and Mercury. Venus has just gone retrograde and is out of bound, which is outside the declination of the orbit of the Earth, and its ruler, Mercury, is also out of bounds and is in exact square to this Neptune. So what this tells me is that there might be some form of confusion and deception going on.
Yeah. And so for people that don't know what out of bounds planets are, they kind of get a Uranian quality to them. They're a little bit more unpredictable. They're a little bit more eccentric. They're, a little bit all over the place. So if you think about these planets being a little bit unpredictable with what's going on, and then we have this exact square to Neptune, which, puts fog and illusion over things. Venus is ruling money, Mercury is ruling transactions, documents, and Neptune, that square, I think with, things reopening, there's a possibility of, be careful of sales that seem too good to be true. I think businesses will be trying to recoup some of the money that they've lost. There'll probably be like massive sales and everyone will want to like go and spend all this money. And so it is, be careful of like fraud or deals that are too good to be true around this time.
I think
Yeah.
also with that square, right? Because Neptune in Pisces reminds me of liquidation,
Mm-hmm.
and more shops will be closing or have closed, and they are doing out like clearance sales.
Yeah. So Gemini is ruling more local businesses as well. And with that square, they could be taking like some big losses with the square to Neptune in Pisces.
So in that sense that I think we gotta be careful with our money and don't go ham on spending too much cash
Mm-hmm.
just yet. But when I think about that square, it's also about when I see Neptune in Pisces, I see virus
Yeah.
squaring both planets in Gemini. Gemini rules lungs and throat. And with that new moon also on Alcone, which also rules the throat and the central nervous system,
Yeah.
we might be still in that backdrop of, having exposing ourselves to the risk of infection. Is that to
Yeah.
say?
And Neptune is like an illusion, or you don't fully know what's going on. So I think even with everything reopening, that people are just kind of experimenting. So that goes with the Uranian, qualities of the out of bound planets, right? It's a little bit experimental to go and put all this stuff back out when they don't know everything about it, which would be Neptune.
I think also that, like with Venus retrograde and also out of bound, right? The way we define our pleasures, the way we define what we actually enjoy
The way
doing.
we're like doing relationships, the way we're communicating is being
Yeah.
revised
I
with
mean,
Gemini.
with that out of bound effect coming in, it may be introducing some kind of quirkiness, which is Uranian, like what you said, and also unconventional. So we may choose to connect with each other, Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we still be stuck, like me and you talking online.
Actually, this is a good point, actually, for those, because Gemini is very flirty. Gemini is kind of about dating, and you have, this Venus retrograde with Mercury there square Neptune. So if any of you have been online dating throughout this isolation, maybe a couple bubbles could be burst at this time
Do
if
you
there
think
was some illusions there.
Tinder and like other dating apps like Bumble will go crazy?
Yeah, I would be careful on those at around this time.
Well, but then like, like that ruler of that Venus, Mercury is also out of bounds. And what it tells me is that, like something out of bound meaning is also like on your own terms, which is very Uranian, right? So if people send you message, you would take your time to reply them.
Mm-hmm.
It's on your own term to reply them. So even if you send text messages and emails, whatever, people will only reply them when they feel ready. So do anticipate some form of if you don't get the email reply like you want, you just have to wait.
Yeah. Well, Neptune's also like idealization or rose-colored glasses, right? So that can be, with Gemini, our day-to-day normal things that we do, our normal running around within our communities. There can also be like an idealization that everything is going to kind of go back to normal, and there could be some friction there because it's not totally going to be the same as before. So that could become a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, the most dangerous thing that we can slip ourselves into is to have normalcy bias.
Mm-hmm.
And with normalcy bias, it means that, we'll be thinking everything will go back to exactly the same. And then we'll underestimate what is just in front of our eyes to deal with, you know. Um, Also, there's this asteroid called Hygeia, which is also in Gemini, very close to that Venus and Mercury, also in aspect to that Neptune. So, Hygeia is actually the asteroid of hygiene and sanitation.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we still need to hold our guards up regarding like washing our hands and taking care of our lungs because Gemini rules lungs. It's a pair.
And that Hygeia was involved in this, everything that happened, which is, Victor was saying, like, I think that's why everybody bought it with the toilet paper and all the hand sanitizer and all that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. But also like because Hygeia is so close to that Venus and Mercury, which are both out of bound, by the way. Especially for Mercury, right? Mercury out of bound can mean um, being not afraid to express ourselves inoffensively.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, people might be speaking their truths more.
Well, and it's like you said about this new moon being about listening, because there's going to be a lot of people with a lot of crazy opinions and all this other kind of thing. And when you let all these people out back into society, a lot of what they've developed over this time is going to clash. And, some people will be saying like more like it's like I work at a pub and I don't even want to go back there because I know all the opinions are going to fly around and it's going to create a lot of tension.
Well, I think it's like there's lots of like conditional, which is Saturn, conditions attached with this reopening to reconnect, retrograde Saturn on a social level, which is the air trine that we have from the moon and also Saturn. So are people going to stick to this conditional reopening? Or are they going to like be
I think there's gonna be
The
like three kind of people, like really hardcore OCD people. There's gonna be people that totally don't care, and then there's gonna be people in the middle. So it's gonna be interesting.
I think you know what, like with out of bound Mercury particularly in this configuration being highlighted, I think people won't be afraid to speak their truth, even if it um even if it comes out as very surprising.
Hmm.
And people won't be afraid to really like speak their word of truth, even though they might offend people.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
And also Gemini rules businesses. So I think like some business owners might be protesting. I can see that happening. I mean, it's already been happening in the States. I think it'll be even more like even more wild as we speak. Because it's almost like people are um smart enough to know what is true and what is not uh, about the situation we're living in now.
Yeah. And remember too, like Mercury rules the sign of Virgo. Virgo is talking about employees.
Right.
So with that, I think a lot of employees are going to be voicing their opinions because a lot of people think some of the certain industries it's too soon to open them
Mm.
when the owner isn't in the mix, right? But the little guy is, and they're the ones with these concerns. And so when you're saying they're going to be speaking out and speaking their truth, I think it can have something to do with that as well.
Yeah. So I think with this new moon, it is mm, people can
It's
trip
a
up.
mixed bag.
Yeah, it's the mixed bag as always. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
although we are like serious and responsible and perhaps even conscientious with that Saturn to actually keep things going, you
Hmm.
know, Saturn is also something about being realistic and achievable.
Yeah.
So going back to that square of Neptune and Venus and Mercury, I think there could be anxiety and also a hype of sorts to actually get things back to how things were.
Yeah.
But then we need to be stay real about the actual situation now and not go over our heads with our expectations. Yeah.
Well, Neptune's the planet of isolation, and then all this energy that's squaring it is in a very social sign. So, yeah.
But you know what? I see a few other things like with the new moon actually square the intuitive sign of Pisces, which has Mars there.
Hmm.
Um, I think we'll be able to, over this new moon period, to actually understand the hidden causes of our current difficult situation as a collective, which is Pisces.
Hmm.
Um, how do we actually get here in the first place? I think we'll be questioning a lot of that because Gemini is about questioning, keep on asking questions. It's the internal student. And I think by asking a lot of questions to find the truth through the fog, which is Pisces, of what's been going on, I think we can actually see a more comprehensive bifocal vision of the truth. We can see things from two sides because Gemini like to see like from both ends, and Pisces is also like it has a dual energy to it as well.
Hmm.
With that new moon trining, well, it's actually out of sign, but I still consider it as a trining that Jupiter in Capricorn. I think will be um, particularly for businesses or big corporations because Capricorn rules big business, and Jupiter that actually emphasizes that you'll be establishing new lines of communication and new ways of functioning. Also, yeah,
Yeah.
probably there's more vertical integration because like Jupiter is actually close to Saturn in Aquarius, and Aquarius rules anything that's vertical.
Well, and Jupiter's in
Yeah.
Capricorn, which is talking about like the hierarchy and the higher up, and Jupiter's laws. And so, it's implementing laws onto like um, all these planets in Gemini, right? So it's like new laws, new regulations are being put in. So with Saturn going retrograde, it's just all being restructured now. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Something just came to my mind regarding that um, Venus and Mercury square Neptune. Um, a certain percentage of the population will be broke because of being displaced,
Mhm.
and they can fall for scammers,
Mhm.
and also like people who are like I think this is the best time for loan sharks
Yeah.
to actually function.
Yeah, like scammers, people who do fraud, and yeah, definitely be careful with like your transactions, your documents.
It's very easy to fall into the trap of like borrowing money that you don't have from like unlicensed loan sharks. You know, people who advertise something that they are not.
Mhm.
Yeah, and all that.
Yeah, there's like
So
an element of overspending here too. Like, if you haven't been working for a while and you come out and you see all these awesome sales, it's like a shopaholic, right?
yeah, actually, I would be uh very wary of how of what I actually spend money on in the coming month.
Yeah. Yeah, because it can be like deceptive marketing as well.
Pushy
And,
salespeople,
and
very pushy.
deceptive media as well, like Gemini's media. So, there's a little bit of illusion going on there.
Or that out of bound Venus and Mercury can mean like, like people will be, these two in combination can be very, very flattering. So people can be like throwing a lot of like flattery to you just to make sure that you buy some stuff and spend your money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a very charming salesman who's
Yeah,
this whole energy, actually Mercury and Venus together with that square to Neptune. It's like a suave businessman, like a used car dealer, but he knows how to like, use words and kind of sway you, and you're like, okay, I'm getting a great deal. Like,
or maybe they're being told by, their managers inside the mall or, like in their bosses or whatever to just like, hey, push, 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 push all the sale that you can.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so to bring it back to what we said earlier, I did say in the beginning of the video that this new moon is actually particularly important and it will be linked to a subsequent lunation that's going to take place later. And this technique is called like lunar gestation or a progress moon family is the actual term of the technique, by the way. And I actually look at 18 months down the road, which is the full moon equivalent of this current Gemini new moon. And I've pulled up the chart for that as well. And this will become a lunar eclipse, a partial lunar eclipse. And it can actually tell us 18 months down the road, whatever that we've seeded now, as in May 2020, when 18 months is up, we will probably be experiencing what the partial lunar eclipse has to offer. And this will take place on 19th of November next year. And this is a very interesting partial lunar eclipse as well, because of certain things. First of all, you've got Pluto, Neptune, and Chiron all exactly on the same degree in the zodiac 18 months later.
Mhm.
The other thing I spotted is that the new moon on the 22nd, 23rd, depending where you are, will be at 2 degrees of Gemini. And 18 months later, that's when the North Node will actually be very close to that point as well. So it tells me that whatever that we've seeded um, this month, whatever that we are planning to do, in 18 months we'll be having like a full bloom effect, or things will fully materialize by then.
Yeah, which is interesting timing because right now the nodes have just moved into the Gemini Sagittarius axis, and now 18 months later they're just getting ready to move out. So it's wrapping up whatever it's created throughout that time in Gemini.
Yeah, and I think with this partial lunar eclipse, right? Because it has that the lunation will actually occur at 27 of Taurus, which is where the fixed star algo is, and algo is that Medusa energy. It is that it is not the most benefic fixed star as well among a whole list of fixed stars. And we've got Mercury combust with the sun on the other end in Scorpio. So it's like we will still be in that things will be in full bloom, yes, because it's a partial lunar eclipse, but I think we'll still be undergoing a work in progress situation here.
And if you're tying those two things together in the last chart that we showed you guys, the new moon. So this is about planting a seed and it's in Gemini. So this is a new idea and something that's being developed. So at the end of 18 months, this is basically when it comes to fruition, which is interesting because in the past chart that we showed you, there was 6 planets in mutable signs. So things are changing. There's flexibility there. There's ideas there. It's all about, playing around. And now the nodes are going to be shifting into fixed signs, which is about stabilization of those things. So I think it's important to make that connection as well, because I think the things that are being birthed now that's when they're going to be more solidified.
Yeah, and then we have that, was it 5 planets, including Uranus, all in fixed signs, which is nearly half of the planets we're looking at.
Yeah.
And sorry, let me add 2 more because Jupiter and Saturn are going to move into fixed signs as well. So 5 plus 2, 7 planets in fixed signs.
Yeah. Yeah. So it went from a shitload in mutable signs to a bunch in fixed. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And
Because like the mutable signs too, they're described as the destroyer. They like to take things and like change them all around and like make them their own and improve them in certain ways, and then they leave them, right? Aries or like the cardinal signs like create things, and the fixed signs stabilize things and maintain things, keep them as they are. So
and one more thing, let's just move slightly back to the new moon chart. When I see that new moon actually trying that Saturn retrograde, right?
mm-hmm.
In Aquarius rules like the World Wide Web.
Mm-hmm.
And I think recently on a mundane level, we've been actually experiencing like an increasing censorship
As
of
soon as Saturn
platforms.
moved into Aquarius, it's been like regulations, and they've been removing a bunch of internet content and screening that differently. So yeah, censorship.
And because I think, if I'm not wrong, I actually read that Twitter just employed um, someone who's like related to the Chinese regime to actually conduct censorship on Twitter. So that is one of the possible manifestations of this trine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a mixed bag here we're dealing with. But
Well, I
if
think
we
new media platforms are definitely going to be emerging here for sure, because people aren't going to like some of these things. They're going to look for their own ways to do things eventually. like if there's already talk or like a buzz about it, those things will start to be solidified, I think.
Actually, I agree with you because like if we zip forward to 18 months and we see where Saturn is the same planet, its closest aspect is almost exact, by the way, is with Chiron. It's a nice sextile there. And Chiron is about anything that's out of the norm. And Aries is really to spearhead, to be pioneering something, you know. And since we've got the planet of internet structures, which is Saturn in Aquarius, sextiling that Chiron, we may be looking at alternative platforms.
Yeah.
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 And also, the other planet that rules internet is Uranus, because it really interconnects us as a global village. And it's got an exact, well, close to exact trine actually, with a Venus. So, and Venus is in the corporate sign of, or the enterprise sign of Capricorn. So I think by then, a lot of businesses that has been pushed to be moved online during this lockdown, you'll actually find it more viable to shift more of their business operations onto the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Saturn and Chiron sextile, if you're looking at the degree, it's at 8 degrees, which is a scorpionic degree, which can talk about, you know, creation, transformation, something being reborn.
Yep. So I've actually like typed something else here, which is like lessons that we've learned in the last 18 months that we've undertook in a very grounded, realistic, and mature way. You'll be able to find yourself being more independent 18 months later. Because if I think about the signs of Aquarius and Aries, they're both very independent signs. So if you've, for example, worked your way in the next coming 18 months to become more autonomous, to perhaps live a bit more off the grid, you know, you might see some form of fruition over here, like by the end of 2021. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense too, with that new moon just being in Gemini. So I think right now, you know, like all the new ideas are being born, and the ones that put in the hard work and put in the effort and structure that way, that can actually be pretty powerful for creation if you're wanting to do something more independent.
Yeah, and don't forget, 18 months ago, from this partial lunar eclipse, Saturn was retrograde. You're still revisiting some things that probably came to you earlier.
So what is the date for this one?
This one is 19th of November 21 next year. Yeah, so we've got a good like 18 months to actually like think of what we actually want. Right now, we are probably brainstorming, which is Gemini, about our options. Yeah. And perhaps by then, by end of 2021, we'll be probably having like a good solid reality. You know, 7 planets and fixed signs. You know, to move forward with the ground being solid and not so wobbly like we are experiencing it now. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Basically, we're in the winds of change right now. Maybe that'll be like our feet back on the ground a little bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
so I shall
positive.
There's something at the end of the rainbow that's a pot of gold.
Yeah.
That's waiting for us. But then we need to know that progress will be slow because we're dealing with Saturn energies here. But then if we just persevere, we can actually build our new reality like by the end of next year in full bloom. Yeah, we just have to like set realistic goals. I think that's my best advice for people.
That can be kind of what the Neptune square is about too, like some of these things, these ideas that you have, making sure that they're realistic if you're going to start acting on them right now.
Yeah.
Um, Especially if you know like the markets are the way they are, or like certain things are the way they are and they have to be, leveled out before you can do certain things. So not getting, jumping the gun and getting like, being all idealistic, like this is my idea, I'm gonna do it. And then
And
like
also, good
Saturn
point.
retrograde is about taking it step by step, revising it, rethinking it, restructuring it.
And I think like Josie has a good point because like the volatility of the market can be observed through that um, current new moon with that Venus Mercury square Neptune. I think something's about to go down that's like going to affect the markets in the coming month as we approach eclipse season. But that's a whole other story later. Okay. So Josie, what do you see with this new moon chart that we have?
Well, one thing we haven't covered yet is the sextile going on between Mars and Uranus.
All
And
right.
Mars is a very fast planet, and Uranus is kind of, eccentric. So these two energies coming together, this is a very impulsive energy.
But Mars in Pisces, isn't it a bit um, too watery for Mars to go to really like act on things? You reckon?
Okay.
Do you reckon that with that Mars in Pisces and Uranus in Taurus, because Taurus is about food and Uranus is like new ways of stuff, and Pisces, Mars in Pisces gives me the feeling of like what you put most of your energy into when you're relaxed. So you reckon most people would take up like growing their own garden, perhaps growing
Yeah,
their
for
own crops
sure.
in their backyard or something?
Yeah. Well, Uranus is the planet, of like innovation too. So
Or Uranus is also about like, living off the grid, to be on
yes.
the fringe of society. So it can be like, you know what? Um, People who have like backyards who are like, having that space, I think they'll start growing something in their backyard. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think particularly when we've got transiting Mars and Jupiter moving into Aquarius, squaring that Uranus, I think it's going to be even more like crucial. But I think people will have the the beginning or the seed of an idea to actually start growing that in their free time.
So do you think that's, people becoming more self-sufficient then?
Well, I
Which kind of
think,
goes with the new moon in Gemini, because if that can be like new little like communities sprouting up too, right?
yeah, I mean, it's what you actually feel comfortable engaging in small talk with. So, and Uranus is about like-minded idealisms and philosophies.
Mhm.
So, yeah, because eventually that Uranus will move into Gemini, which is a few years down the road. I think by then we'll be having uh, small clusters. It's like villages of sorts that's going to spring up, and people will be more inclined to live off the grid. But I think now it's like the beginning point to actually reach that.
I
Yeah.
do think that actually I know several people who are working on that. And even with that new moon being in Gemini, I know there's a lot of people right now that are buying like a home on wheels. They're buying like RVs and like, or like renovating buses and things like that. So they can basically just take off. Like there's people, preparing for that and like basically relocating to a vehicle.
Well, it's very interesting that you said that because like Venus and Mercury in Gemini, with Venus retrograde in
Mhm.
the movement sign of Gemini, is almost like their dream, which is square Neptune, to actually be mobile and live on wheels.
Yeah.
And I think that new moon trining that Saturn, because Saturn rules autonomy and being like self-sufficient, is their new way of living the future, which is Aquarius, you know, where Saturn is.
Yeah.
Very much so. One thing very interesting though, we see that Mars actually sextile Uranus in the new moon chart, but then 18 months later, we've got Mars opposition Uranus.
Yeah. That's a little bit more of a volatile energy. This like
That is not a
that energy
subtle
can be like
energy. Yeah.
it's like it has like a revolt energy to it or a pushback energy to it.
It has a very revolutionary energy to it.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Do you think
I
people
think
will actually rebel?
oh yes. I think we're gonna see certain people that might even, make history. Like there's certain people that are built for that, for revolutionizing things.
Because I already see like I've actually seen like videos on YouTube. Was it like multiple states in the U.S. They are standing in front of the where the governor actually is in their state to stage protests. I would think this protest movement, you know, um, it's just the beginning. It started
Yeah.
like one, two, what was it like last month? No, or this month? I'm not sure. But I think like with the full moon, the progress full moon, which is the end of 2021, I think this energy will still be um, around.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
and if you look back at some of the patterns basically that's happened with astrology, with the big conjunction that we just had, at a lot of those times there was big revolts going on, there was big protests going on. So the difference with this situation is everyone's been kind of regulated into isolation, and now a lot of these laws are getting through and aren't being like protested or challenged, because it's like there's no um those people can't go conglomerate outside of these things. It's just happening without people being able to have their say, or like have their freedom of speech or protest those things, right?
right.
So
And one more
this situation is a little bit different that way because of the regulations that we're under right now. That's not even possible. So it's just interesting. It's almost like if they seen those things always happening, this was a way for it not to happen.
I think what's even more interesting is that when we go back to the new moon, it's a sextile.
Mm-hmm.
But when we go 18 months down the road into November next year, it's going to be opposition. I think people will be awakening now with the sextile.
Yeah.
But because sextile is a choice, so we a good chunk of people may or may not want to be joining the crowd outside to protest.
Yeah.
But once you hit an opposition, I think a lot of people will be pissed. Or progressively, a lot more people will be pissed.
I agree.
Yeah. And I also just noticed that Uranus and Mars actually both square um, that Saturn in Aquarius, which means that hmm, Saturn in Aquarius reminds me of the New World Order that people have been talking about.
Yeah.
And if Mars and Uranus actually both square that planet, it actually is about I think people on the collective will be like saying screw that.
Well, and Saturn is the government, and Mars is, more younger, youthful people. Um, so
Uranus as well actually is about, like people in their 20s. So I think they'll be like standing up, being uninhibited.
Mhm.
and just lead certain movements. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And also, when we hit like November of 2021, Jupiter is actually squaring both Sun and Moon. It almost comes to me like this 2021 might not be as crazy as this year, but then like all the seeds of revolution are actually planted in 2020, and 2021 is about um, rising up in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. Yeah, in a lot of ways. So one more
That makes
thing that I
sense.
just spotted though, um, because I've been reading, a lot of news in the media, you know, and there was an article I think published um, this week regarding like you can actually buy papers on the equivalent of eBay and Amazon, or there's certain marketplaces online. Papers that actually certify that you are virus free and you have the ability to travel.
Oh, so it's like forged documents. They're already kind of emerging here, which is always
Exactly. And I think it started in China, like with that. And then it's like, there's like, because Neptune can also rule the black markets, and when it's squaring um, Venus and Mercury in the sign of papers, Gemini, it almost tells me that in order to get around the system, because without such papers, you can't travel. Because honestly, for for a good chunk of people in Asia, they gotta travel across towns in order to work. So without that piece of paper, it almost just kind of they're digging their own grave because they have no income coming in, and and actually a good chunk of them are actually daily waged. So if you don't go, there's no money, to feed the children and the family. So um, that actually tells me that with this new moon, like the this particular industry that sells like, I mean, I've read, was it that report coming from Indonesia? I think like Jakarta Post was the one I read today, saying that you can actually buy those quarantine papers, like, to prove that you're virus free for as little as $5 US. But it can cost as much as $300 US, and you can just like buy them off. They deliver right to your place, and then you're just like free to travel. And this might actually jeopardize the whole social distancing measures. Yeah. But
yeah.
underlying that, I think I've mentioned before with Gemini and Pisces squares, there's so much anxiety in the air that people might just take that risk
Yeah.
because it's come to a point whereby there's a lot of anger brewing with that Mars and also in Pisces that uh, Mars is anger, Pisces is virus. So there's actually pent up anger from this pandemic that kind of make them want to take some risk. Sextile Uranus, right? In
Yeah.
order to, for Taurus reasons, to make a living. What's been going on in the bar though that you work at?
Yeah, actually that's interesting because the new moon is happening in my first house, and
Right.
it's got that square to Neptune. We know that Neptune rules with alcohol, breweries, bars, those kinds of things, right? So like you said, the energy of high anxiety is really there.
Mm.
So half of basically the staff are refusing to go back,
Uh-huh.
um, but they're making it seem safe, and they're putting in all these new regulations and all these things that you have to do, and they're trying to make it cashless as possible.
Right.
But yeah, it's I think, you know, it's almost like, and it shows up in here too, it's almost like because they're reopening all the bars and stuff at this time, I feel like it's too soon for that industry, and this Neptune square really you know, when I seen that I was like, yep, I'm not going back right away.
I mean, what actually are the new regulations imposed? Like I mean, people go to bars to have a good time and socialize and talk, right? On a
Well,
personal level.
this is the thing. So there's
Yeah.
a capacity limit. There is distance tables. The server can't approach the table and drop their food directly off of the table. They have to drop it off on the table next to them. We have to basically enforce people staying apart and stuff. And then you throw alcohol in the mix, and then you try to, you know, regulate and control all these people who've been drinking and everything like that. So it's kind of like a recipe for
Isn't it
disaster.
counterintuitive of
It's
sort?
very counterintuitive. Yeah.
It's like you want people to buy alcohol because, like, you know, people go to bars for a reason.
Yeah, and
But
people
then you're
just go to
limiting
that
their
environment
intake.
to like socialize and relax and mingle and things like that. And so it kind of like ruins the whole vibe of, you know, why you'd go there anyway. So
Do you reckon is
Venus is also, you know, restaurants.
yeah? I mean, it's like with all those new things that's imposed, right? Do you think people might just as well after that first visit with with the new rules in the bar and restaurant that they'll stop going?
Mm. Well, this is where I said I think there's going to be like three kinds of people. There's going to be people who totally don't care. There's going to be people who care way too much, and then there's going to be people in the middle. So it's going to be pretty erratic, to be honest. Yeah.
Oh
Which
wow.
explain, you know, with those out of bounds planets, I assume that that comes into play here.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when I see what's coming now and what's coming 18 months later, it'll be a funky period now. I mean, now
Hmm.
to then.
Yeah.
When the nodes are still in Gemini and Sag throughout the whole period.
Yeah.
Hmm. So as you can see, this new moon is going to be very interesting. Certain parts of it, in summary, are about or is about restructuring and rebuilding of our existing reality to adapt into the age of Aquarius because Saturn is there in Aquarius anyways. And it forms the closest aspect to the moon. So as we move forward, it will not be a fast process. I think the current situations now will be will actually persist for some time to come, and this will be the new normal.
Yeah.
I think
So
that will be
there's like an element in here too of you know, letting go and not being idealistic of what it's going to be like. That it is going to be in a lot of ways a new reality that we're going to have to, you know, it's not all just going to go back to normal. So it's going to be a bit of a process getting back into that and figuring out this new way of, you know, interacting and communicating and socializing, which is Gemini.
yeah. So I think my best advice for people is to really get out of the mindset, which is Gemini, that things will go back to normal, or in other words, to have normalcy bias and to accept that things will move forward instead of like backwards from now. Because
Yeah.
to move backwards means that we'll be moving back into Capricornian energy, which is what we have been accustomed to, what we have been taught in school. Everything that's been inculcated from above, the authority. And we're moving into like the age of Aquarius, in which we will have that Jupiter Saturn conjunction at 0 Aquarius on December 21st or 20th, depending where you are. And that will mark like a whole new beginning for the next 220 to 40 years, I think, in total. So it's a whole new energy we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So for this huge shift, I think, with this new moon, it represents all the all the anxiety that we've been panting up with being locked up in our own homes. So we will be able to interact with people, but it may not be in person. What do you have to add, Josie? I think like we will be like just like you and me talking on like online, you know, in two very different places. That will be the new norm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of businesses might be switching over to media. I think we're going to see new media platforms being born from this new moon. Even new businesses, new small groups, people collaborating together to try some new things.
Yeah. So I think people.
Gemini is about adaptability and flexibility also. So we have to learn here how to be more adaptable and flexible in this new situation, and think of new ideas and new ways to do things. I think that's like the biggest thing with this new moon.
Yeah, with the new ideas that's coming in with this new moon, I think people will be like more adaptable
Mm-hmm.
and also more flexible with the idea of like, hey, I actually can work from home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I actually can run errands in the middle of the day. You know, which is supposedly my lunch break if I'm in the office.
Yeah.
You know, from home and do this, do that, and not kind of just have a new way of living, a new routine, a new daily reality, which is Saturn.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a very interesting period.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to take I think it's going to take some adjusting, for sure.
Very much so. I think like the way we actually earn money is going to be different. I think what you said earlier about going cashless, going virtual cash, you know, in terms of like um, be it go to the bar, go to the restaurant, go shopping, you know, it's tapping a device and it gets paid, you know, and not having physical money. I think this will need adjustment on many levels because there will be a section of people that need to see physical money in order to gauge their spending.
Yeah.
And when you don't have, and when you make modes of payment so convenient that it just results in a tap, people might fall into a trap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like
I think that's part of like the Uranus transit through Taurus anyway is going to continue. You know, things are going to be shifting with you know, cash and electronic money. So that's going to be in there for a few more years still. So I think by the end of that transit, we might have a whole different way of doing transactions with cash versus electronic money.
well, also I think that with like alternative platforms like Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
and you know all the other like blockchain that I don't know about the exact terms. Those will actually progressively start to take off,
Yeah. Yeah.
and people might be able to pay like you and myself for readings like via Bitcoin perhaps next time. You know, so very interesting times. Do you have anything more to add?
No, I think we covered quite a bit of that.
Yeah, so people just take care, just keep washing your hands and take care of your lungs.
Yep. Stay safe.
Because the astral hygiene is actually like overlooking all this as well in the configuration. So like till the next lunation, then I think the next one will be entering eclipse season.
Mm.
The next three lunations will be all eclipses. So I think if you like the video, drop a like and comment, and yeah, tell us what would you like us to cover, and we'll have this conversation again. Yeah, till next time with the eclipses that's coming. So like yeah, goodbye from where I am, Singapore.
Thank you guys. Like and subscribe if you guys want to see the full and new moon videos for the eclipses. Show us some love and we'll make some more videos. Until then, stay safe. Thank you guys very much for watching.
All right, bye.
Bye.